Welcome. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Amen.
And today's class is in memory of, is it Naomi Gordon, did you say? Judith? It's your mom.
Goren.
Goren, thank you. Please forgive
Como
Naomi.
ben ha-goren v'hagan.
Lovely. Okay. Well, may it be for the elevation of her soul. And I'm going to go into the screen share right now. It's interesting. Give me 1 second. Okay. One moment, please. There we are. Okay. Sorry, it's taking me longer than normal. Oh, no. There we are. So continuing, Noah is on the ark. The waters have started to come down. They have, in fact, inundated the earth. And in describing all of this, here we go. Yeah, up here, this verse was talking about how the waters were inundating the earth, right? 100 days, about 150 days. Vayisru, vayisachru, mayanot tohom. So in this particular chapter, we read about how God takes note of Noah and the animals that are with him, and he causes this calming spirit or wind, it's a ruach, right, to pass over the waters. Vayisachru mayanot tohom. And the wells or the springs of the Tahom, of the vast deep, were stopped up. And going on a little bit here, the arubot hashamayim, and the windows of heaven. So they both were stopped up. And so the waters that were created, that, as I explained in explaining Genesis chapter 1, represent divine judgment. They were withheld at this point. Vayichaleh hageshem min hashamayim, and the rain from heaven came to an end. Here's Rashi. Vayisrachru mayanot. So it says wells were stopped up, springs were stopped up. Kesheniftachu, however, when they were opened up at the beginning of the flood, kativ kol mayanot, it uses the term kol. It says all the springs. V'chan ein kativ kol. But in this sentence, that word kol, meaning all, is omitted. Again, this is another wonderful example how small little words can pack an interesting interpretation on things. So in the first case, it said all. In this case, it didn't say all of them were opened, but all of them weren't stopped up. So why? The reason why, shenishtayu mehen, because the remained of them, there were some of these springs that remained, sheyesh bahem tzorech la'olam, that the world would have need of. So there were some of these springs that the world had need of, and Rashi gives us an example, kagon chamei Tiberia, like the hot waters, the hot springs of Tiberias, Ukayotsebahem, and elsewhere too. So like Saratoga. So these places where the natural springs, issue forth with very hot water. Now, this actually answers a question that Harlan asked, perhaps, I think it was off the record, about what about the fish? And the answer is that if those waters were at the heat of Tiberias, the springs of Tiberias, etc., the fish also would have had a tough time surviving. However, we know it doesn't say anything about Noah having aquariums on the ark. So we would have to come up with some kind of idea that whereas perhaps a great number of fish died in the hot waters, and that Noah himself and his family and the animals, the ark was in these hot waters, nevertheless, there must have been some place where they weren't. Again, this is sort of looking at this in a very literal kind of way. And as you know, it's not necessarily the place I go to understand and interpret these stories.
Well, I would think that this isn't a literal story, and I'm not sure why answer these questions scientifically, or, because, we're not trying to study science or history or anything like that. Just,
Literature.
it's
Yeah.
literature, but with a means of strengthening a religious path and
Absolutely.
growth and inwardly. And I just, you could ask a billion questions of things that don't make sense related to Noah gathering two of every single animal on the ark, but
Of course.
I don't see the point.
Right. And again, I think I said this off the record, that the real point might well be the degree to which the fate of the earth and the earth's population is contingent on how man behaves, and that is the real story. And
Yeah, well, I see the point of that. I don't see the point of discussing each fish and bird and bug and whether the lions wanted to eat the lambs, or whether there was room for them and who cleaned up. I mean, none of that matters. It's story.
Yeah.
You have to suspend belief and get to the point.
Right. And understand it's a story.
Well, we currently look at the Torah stories as metaphors and as literature and not as science. And I also wanted to mention that one of the problematic things in the creation story is Peru or Vu, that this is how we dominate the animals and the world. It has a tikkun olam aspect and a colonialistic aspect. But how was it seen to begin with? How part of why we talk about this is for people who say, oh, evolution contradicts the Bible, and we're trying to, in some sense, address that when we deal with it, even if it isn't a question for us.
So is there a question there, Judith?
Yeah. So how was it seen then? How was it seen when it was received? How was it seen at Sinai?
True. I hear you. Certainly the evidence seems to point that it was taken in a much more literal kind of way. There's no doubt about it. But remember, it's Sarah this morning quoted me a line that is a favorite line of hers that came up in a class on literature when she was in high school. And the high school, there was a prof who actually taught in that high school and ran the English department there, and that department was just amazing. And the one statement that she shared with me is a statement that and I'm trying to do the best I can to repeat it, but something to the effect of you see things not as they are, but as how you are. So the Torah has to, and this is, sometimes we have come across a phrase that says, Dibra Torah Bilshon B'nei Adam, which means, literally that means the Torah speaks in the language of man. So the idea of this has more to do with the way in which the Torah may need to find different ways to appeal to various people's understanding of reality, etc., and whether there is an underpinning message that the Torah has that goes well beyond its literal interpretation. But for those people who hold on, of course, there were brilliant people who saw it that way. Now, these people weren't naive in any other sense, but I mean, you can judge for yourself as to the whole midrashic approach to the Torah, and looking back on how much Rashi you've already seen, and to what degree it's pretty sophisticated stuff and imaginative, and tries to get into the heart of what's going on. And sometimes that involves finding specifics to generalities, but usually those specifics also point at something that's deeper going on. So even this little piece that we just read about the hot waters, we could spend time on that and discuss, that on the one hand, initially that was something very destructive, but nevertheless, God didn't remove all of it because there is, in fact, some need for it within the world. So I don't want to get too preachy over that, but it's all there. So anyway, I want to finish this off by, I want to make sure I've got the right word here. Vayichale. That's a nifal form, right? It came to an end, right? The rain came to an end. And he says this word vayichale means vayimna. He withheld. So Rashi giving us a better sense of the Hebrew association with that. Vayimna kamo, and he gives beautiful example from the Psalm 40. Lord, I think it's Lord tichale rachamecha. I think it is also in the nifal form. May your mercies, right? May your love never cease. May it not be withheld. Excuse me. I want to go with.
And mine says tichla.
Okay, tichla. So it is in the kal form there. Thank you, Lauren. Without I don't have it memorized. So thank you, Lord tichla rachamecha. May your mercies or your love never be withheld. Or may you not withhold. Sorry, if we're going to use the active voice, then I'd have to say, may you not withhold your mercies. That would be a better translation. Okay. And again, you may need to help me here. And this is Genesis chapter 23. Okay, and it says, Lo yichle mimcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, may it not be withheld from you. And I confess, I don't recollect what context that is, right? But it sounds like, that whatever blessings it shouldn't. Oh, I just thought of it. Okay.
It's the next chapter.
Well, chapter 23. It's in Chayei Sarah, and it has to do, I'm pretty sure, with Abraham seeking a proper burial site for Sarah. And the leaders, the elders of Hebron say to Abraham, no one will withhold their burial site from you. And that's what the context is. Okay, so we've seen Rashi deal with Midrash, we've seen Rashi deal with Pshat, we've seen Rashi deal with grammar, and we are going to see Rashi dealing with chronology. And I can tell you that I spent a lot of time in terms of trying to prepare this, and also preparing an English, sort of an outline in English for you to. Sorry, give me a second here. To try and help you follow as much as possible what's going on here. So let me see if I can. Oh, hold on a second. What's going on? It's not letting me get back into the meeting for some reason or other. That's interesting. Oh boy. My frustrations of these things. Yeah, there it is. Okay, there's that. Let me see what I can do here. 1 second. Sorry, I'm having some issues here. All right, there we are. I'm back in. Just had to figure out how. So we're on to the next verse. Vayashuvu hamayim me'al haaretz, and the waters went back right? Receded, I guess we could translate it, right? From over the earth, haloch v'shov, back and forth. So they went little, in other words, this process of the receding waters. Vayachsaru hamayim, and so the waters basically lacked. In other words, the amount of water that was inundating the earth came to an end. Miktsei chamishim u'meyat yom. That came to the end at the end of 150 days. So now we're into some chronology. Okay. And we'll take a look. Let's see if we got some Rashi on this. Here we go. Miktsei chamishim u'meyat yom. Right. So the waters were covering the mountains, right? Covering by 15 cubits, and now they're slowly receding. And at the end, and we'll see this, and the waters receded to a point after 150 days. It took that long. Hitchilu lachazor, they began to diminish. Vahu echad b'sivan, and that this is the chronology. This took place on the first day of Sivan, of the Jewish month of Sivan. Ketzad. How was this possible? He's saying, how do we figure this? The Kaf Zayin b'Kislev, on the 27th of Kislev, Pasku HaGeshamim. So he's done this. We might have done this in a previous session a year ago or so, but the rains came to an end on the 27th of Kislev. Hare Shalosh, so look at this. We have 3 days to the end of Kislev, and I will show you. I'm just going to read this, and then I'm going to do a new share with you. The Kaftet mi Tevet, the 29 days in Tevet, and so of course 29 and 3 is Lamed Bet, 32. Ushvat is 30 days again. Adar is 29 days. The Nisan, and Nisan is 30 days. The Iyar is 29 days. And if you add that all up, okay, so he says, so he's got Kuf Yud Chet, that comes to 118. If you add all those up, the last group, so 118 and 32 is 150. Let me show this, and I think this is, hopefully this is going to be helpful. So give me a second. Let's see if I can do this. Here we are. You see this? All right, let's go back here. All right, this is what Rashi's talking about, okay? That, excuse me, 1 second. Okay. So the rain started to fall on the 17th of Cheshvan. That's what Rashi was telling us. Okay. So this is the 40 days. Okay. So the rains ended on the 27th of Kislev. Okay. So he says, what's going on here? Okay. So they remember it said they were over the earth for 150 days. So 27th of Kislev, 3 days to Kislev 30th. Here's the addition down here, and that comes to 150 days. So that's how he figures that the waters began to diminish on the 1st of Sivan. That's what he said, okay? And we're going to be told in the next verse how the ark rested on the 17th of Sivan. This, I'm going to tell you now, gets quite complicated. Let's see if I can do this. A moment. Okay. So I'm going to have to do that. Sorry. Just figure this. So I mean, I'm not sure if, you should make get a pencil and paper, or I should send you a copy of what I wrote down. But let's see what we can do, at least a little bit. Okay, so we've got the 150 days that the waters are diminishing, right? Coming to an end. And then let's take a look at the next verse. V'tanach hateva b'chodesh hashvi'i. And the ark rested in the 7th month, the Shiva Asar Yom Chodesh, on the 17th day of the month, Al Hare Ararat, on the mountains of Ararat. So again, let me go back and see if I can find that share. Okay. So this, he's saying 7th month refers to 7 months from Kislev. So in other words, from when the rains ended. And this is where he said, we just read, the ark rested. And this is the point that Rashi is making, okay? That when it says in the 7th month, the Torah doesn't say, just the 7th month. And he's saying that we're talking about the 7th month from when the rains ended. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and Sivan would be the 7th month. So that's how he figures this out. As I said, it is complicated, but let's push on a little bit. Let me see if I can do this. I have to find the text in the. All right. So let's take a look. All right. So first of all, he says B'chodesh Hashvi'i. He says the 7th month is Sivan. V'hu Shvi'i Kislev. That's the point that I made. Shebo Paskur Geshamim, because the rains ended in Kislev. So he's basically saying 7 months later, on the 17th of that day. Now, I think what I need to do, because I'm noticing how late it is to stop right here, and we'll discuss if you would like to continue this, at least a little bit. We have a lot of this kind of Rashi going on now. And so let me stop the share. And as I said, he gets into this chronology where he talks about the specific dates that this was all happening. Right. So does anybody want to say anything while we're still on the record? Yeah.
Was it, Rabbi, was it 6 months? Actually 6 months of the rain, as the rain was going down, and then 30 days after that, the 7th month.
Yeah. That's more like, yeah, it was. I mean, the whole flood, the whole experience of the flood took a year. That's actually how this, from beginning to the very end of it, was exactly a year. So, okay, let me stop the recording. Yeah, go ahead.
Please share that thing, because we did some of this last year, and I've got 190, and then I've got another 40, and the last numbers I have is only 230. So
Okay.
so we started it, but maybe we didn't finish it.
We didn't get to this little part. It's broken up this way, and that's how he referred back to something he'd already concluded.
Right.
Sorry, Harlan, did you want to say something else?
Yeah, I was going to say that Lauren said, what she said was about the lions not attacking Noah or the lambs. In other words, God did it. God said, "You're going to be compromised, lion. You're going to be peaceful while you're on that ark." So that's what they were. They were peaceful. Well, when they were released, they started their old thing again, being mean and so forth. But another thing is, after the rain, there was a rainbow. I look outside sometimes and I see a rainbow. So that means we're not going to anymore.
It's a reminder that sometimes we screw up.
I see a beautiful rainbow every time it rains. Yeah. I don't know.
Okay, I think Lauren wanted to say something. Lauren, before you comment, yesterday we read how it said, Ach Noach Bateva, that in some way he was diminished, and Rashi explains that he was diminished because of the incredible amount of work he had in tending the animals, and that the lion got upset with Noah because Noah delayed in bringing him his food, and he actually, gave Noah a frost, and injured Noah. So, but I don't think that's the point you were making.
What was his food? Carrots?
Like, oh, the carrot stew on the tawny scrawny lion.
Or was it some of the other animals that were brought two by
That's
two?
That sounds pretty good.
No, they didn't have enough for six
Wait a
for a year.
second. Wait, at this particular point, I think everything is vegetarian, including human beings.
Including
Everyone.
lions.
Yeah, I would have to assume that. But again,
I think
I think the point you're making, Lauren, is how sort of misleading it is to start asking these kinds of questions about the story. I think, the point about the lion attacking Noah, Rashi made the point, is that even at Tzaddik, he quotes Proverbs at the end of his comment, how even righteous people certainly face adversity. And, that's kind of where he's going there.
So
Yeah.
one of the points is it's not really the point of the story, but the second point is there's nature
Mhm.
and there's God. So nature doesn't really matter if God can do anything to change nature at any time or to go against what is, naturally, occurring or whatever.
Mhm.
So nature doesn't really matter in a sense.
Right.
There
Well,
is no nature.
right. Or
Uh,
nature is
It's
cooperative.
just whatever God wants it to be at any given time.
Right. I mean, we could put it a little bit
Nature does
differently.
matter.
Okay.
Nature does matter.
Okay.
Look what's happening with warming of our earth, and we don't respect
But if God
that.
wanted to reverse it, he could, because God, can do anything, whether it's natural or not.
Yeah,
I-
but horrible, oh boy, so tornadoes and
Okay.
storms are getting worse and worse.
So the way I think I'd like to put it is to say that behind nature, there is a divine element that allows and promotes and helps nature work. That part of having a religious perspective on reality is saying that nature is still dependent on the divine force. And so the divine force can act in sometimes ways that alter the normal, what we would call normal, because that's what we observe or what's observable. But nevertheless, that there's this ineffable, mysterious force that allows it all to operate. So with that, I am going to stop the recording.
Yeah.